What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk to you about SoFi. I want to go over some of the current data points, break it down on what really moved it, as well as give you my thoughts on SoFi's upcoming Q2 earnings. So I want to go over some estimates and some things that you need to be aware of. Before we get into any of that, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So starting off with today, SoFi did go down slightly, 0.23%. And given the market's bloodbath, SoFi actually did hold up fairly well, especially given the circumstances in the past. SoFi's usually pulled back. And I think the reason why this held up so well is because of data. At the same time, that's kind of what caused the market to really pull back. So today we did have somewhat mixed. So initial jobless claims came in at 217 versus 225, the forecast. Then we had a lot of flash data, such as the composite, manufacturing, and services. So services was a lot better than the forecast. So that came in at 55.2. Forecast for that was 52.9. Anything above 50 shows more of an expansion. So in general, that really did kind of save SoFi from getting slaughtered today, as well as a lot of the other kind of fintechs and so forth. But one thing that caused a lot of kind of fear in the market was manufacturing. So we also had manufacturing data on Tuesday, Richmond data, which both similarly, as well as today, was negative. So the manufacturing came in at 49.5, forecast was 52.7, previous was 52. So it was actually anticipated to be relatively optimistic, but complete 180. So I think all this data was going to be very important today because that would encumber tariffs and potentially how impactful it could be. So of course, with -2 consecutive data points, so Tuesdays as well as today's, you had the market somewhat on edge. So let me know your general thoughts on that. Aside from that, the only thing that really came out that kind of helped some stocks, more specifically AI and just tech plays, was this right here. So Trump signing a executive order for AI, and so this is going to be promoting export of American AI technology. So in general, that's kind of a good thing. I feel like also in the past, this would have positively pushed SoFi higher, but SoFi seemed to be very just relaxed today. Despite that though, you did see shorts return a significant amount. So it does show a odd number right here, and that is because of the NASDAQ just disclosing a new update. So as you can kind of see right here, it is always delayed. So as of yesterday, there was 133.33 million shares that was short. Previously, it was 152. So shorts did return just between, it looks like, the end of June up until July the 14th, shorts did return just shy around about 20 million shares. So definitely that's a shocker. And so of course, Ortex and other platforms kind of take that information and calculate it. So this is why it is showing -22. So shorts did return roughly around 3 million shares today. So kind of interesting stuff. So I think in general, shorts returning that magnitude also did and does justify why SoFi over the last little bit has been kind of holding these levels and really been FOMO in the market. So let me know your viewpoint on that. Do you think shorts returning 22 million shares more than what we thought during that time period is a sign that their upcoming earnings is going to be positive, or do you think it's nothing? So as far as kind of speaking of earnings, I'm going to go over the rest of the data points and then cycle back to estimates and my kind of thoughts on that. So aside from what shorts did, looking at the options, we had 25 million in calls, 5.5 million in puts. I know it kind of sounds weird, but the dollar value is a little bit low in comparison to what we're used to. But 43% of all the options being done today were bearish in nature. Of the bulls, you see a consensus for it to be roughly around that 22 to 22.50. So a little bit more of a recovery anticipated tomorrow. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub 21. So given where we did close at, kind of level ground in between. With tomorrow being Friday, just take note of this. This is open interest. So we have 16,000 at that 21.50, 21,000 at that $22 strike price, 38,000 at 22.50, and then 19,000 at the 23. So essentially, best case scenario, SoFi does close above, let's say 22.50 or even 23, then you'll see a very nice gamma squeeze going into next week. But I think the moral of the story is SoFi's earnings is going to be the big mover. Today, we didn't really see that level of crazy transactions as what we saw yesterday. So these are all the transactions that did occur on the secondary market above $100,000. So you saw some buying near the tail end, a lot of pockets of selling. Still did see some big transactions, just not to the same magnitude as yesterday. But today was somewhat mixed. Again, it still did hold its gains, so that's a fairly good thing. Aside from that, these are all the transactions occurring on the dark pool. Dark pool is often enough used by hedge funds and as well as short, so I always like to kind of look at this. So there was one big one that happened pretty much when the market did close, 1.6 million, 1.06, and that seems to be the only large ones for today for the most part. But there was a ton. As you can kind of see, I am still scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. So yeah, a lot of big transactions, moral of the story. With it closing at 2151, it is trading between this pivot and this S1. So 2077 is going to be that key support. Wasn't tested whatsoever today. Then 2166 is going to be the next strong kind of target slash resistance. So just watch for it to ideally get above that. It was surprisingly above that during the pre-market, but unfortunately with the data that did come out, you kind of had a little bit of a pullback. So just watch for that. And with today, now past, I don't believe we had any new analyst ratings unless it was just posted. So same ones. So yesterday, as far as on the actual chart, things are still looking pretty good. So still doing fairly well above all the key pivotal moving averages that I generally like to look at. And then stochastic RSI is oversold. So if we do have some good data that does come out specific to SoFi, or whether it be the broader market, you could see a secondary kind of run, as crazy as that sounds. So let me know your thoughts on SoFi. And did you buy today? Did you sell? What's your kind of general thoughts? So with all that data now past us, let's kind of talk about SoFi's upcoming earnings. So in case you don't know, SoFi's earnings is slated for July the 29th before the market does open. So SoFi's earnings are always bright and early, so usually a good kind of way to wake you up. But aside from that, earnings per share, revenue, those are some of the key metrics that typically Wall Street cares about. In addition to that though, it's going to be member growth, deposits, and innovation, future guidance. So I think this time around, so we've kind of gone through various transitions. 2024 was a big year for future guidance. This time around, from what I can see from companies unveiling their earnings, yes, future guidance is important, but as of right now, it's actually the key metrics as well. How are you financially? Do you have a lot of cash? All of those kind of questions come into play. So earnings per share, 6 cents. And I'll go over some further details above that, over and above that. But revenue, 804.36 million. Over the last 90 days, you have 7 positive, 1 negative revisions to the earnings per share. And if we kind of dive deep into this a little bit more, that 6 cents does work out to be 497.4% year over year growth. Low end is 5 cents, high end is 8. Moving over to the revenue though, you do have that 804.36 million working out to be 34.74% year over year growth. And even looking forward, you see constant, solid double-digit growth. So that's, again, something that could potentially cause a domino effect on if, let's say, SoFi does unveil some new innovative product, because, of course, that's going to be seen as very positive. And what I mean by innovative kind of product, crypto, I think that's kind of the moral of the story. We know it's coming in 2025, just don't know when. But nonetheless, you'll see a very nice, beautiful domino effect if they do kind of give us more on what they're working on and everything else like that. But this 804 million works out to be 34.74%, 790 the low, 821 the high. And I kind of posted this on social media. It's not fully everything because it doesn't show June, but technically web traffic in the past at least has been a good indication of member growth. So in May, we did have record numbers, so 26.6 million, July 16.6, so kind of on the low end. So I think, in my opinion, given the circumstances, it'll be somewhat in line with kind of expectations. So roughly probably around the 850 in my opinion. So I think in general, there's a lot of high expectations for SoFi to unveil technically crypto. And so I think, like I said, that's going to be like a huge deal. Like, what is SoFi going to give? So even if on a lot of the key metrics, let's say they beat on earnings per share, revenue, they say everything that they need to do, because last earnings as well, they did raise their guidance on their revenue. But let's say they don't give us a definitive date on crypto. In my opinion, I can actually see the market pushing SoFi lower just because of that. Because I think given what has happened to SoFi recently, because they kind of announced that in various interviews, fireside chats, but crypto, I think that SoFi was starting to get a higher multiple because of that being anticipated. So that's why SoFi started to really FOMO in, what caused shorts to really get out. So that's going to be something to kind of watch for. Aside from that, margins, I believe from their last earnings, it was roughly around 27%. So that again is going to be something to really pay attention to. Student loans, technically August 1st, we have a big update for that. So how is SoFi really planning that? What is the origination growth? Potentially aside from crypto, is there any other new product launches? We've seen a lot in Q2 technically from 𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧. So how is that really working with the whole debit card credit kind of partnerships? So I think overall, that is what the market's going to be really looking at. And regrettably, I do feel that SoFi is going to be put in a very difficult scenario. So I think that there is a lot of high expectations for SoFi, and no different than a lot of other innovative companies as they went up, such as Robinhood and even Palantir, when they started to go up, and justifiably so. Technically, Wall Street just doubted them and said, hey, you have too high of a multiple, you don't deserve to be there. So they started to get a lot of negative ratings. I can honestly see that playing out with SoFi, in my opinion, of course. So that could add a lot of volatility. Do we obviously have solid growth? Yes. Are they going to be on a lot of their key metrics? Most likely, yes. So probably this earnings will be another triple beat. But as what I mentioned, I think people will be starting to really look at the multiple as, is this sustainable? Is this justified? And everything like that. So even right now, looking at the PE ratio, it is sitting at 76.54. When SoFi started to run back in like December, January, that was one thing that a lot of the bears brought up. Hey, SoFi has like a 66 ratio. That's way too high. They're just not worth it. So at the end of the day, just don't be surprised if you do see a little bit of a pullback occur with SoFi. One thing to take note of though is looking at the implied move from the options. There is a kind of anticipated 9.1% move. So that's roughly a $2 move in either direction could occur. Side note, this is actually the highest SoFi has ever had their earnings. So the previous one was, it looks like in January 27, 2025, when SoFi was at 1792. So going into this earnings, yeah, it's going to be absolutely insane on kind of how the market interprets everything. So I am confident that SoFi will really move higher over the next little bit, but post earnings immediately, I do anticipate a little bit of a pullback. And again, SoFi over the last several earnings has actually had a triple beat, but this right here, you can kind of see from this is a good representation of how Wall Street sees SoFi. Even though they beat, this right here shows the earnings per share beat/miss. They've beat consistently since 2022, but yet the Wall Street sees their kind of earnings as fluff in some cases. Even technically last one, or the 2 ones ago, it went down 10.27%. One prior, 6.43%. So again, it's all about perception, and is SoFi at these levels justified? So I think in general, you're going to see a lot of volatility, but bigger picture, it's going to be another triple beat and really move on higher. So let me know your general thoughts. Hopefully this was a little bit more a good overview of what Wall Street is going to be really paying attention to in regards to their earnings. And where do you see things going? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think that there's going to be just FOMO for it just to go straight up to 30? Or do you think that we're going to see more of a controlled pullback? Which again, on a side note and on a technical standpoint, is still fairly good and healthy. But if SoFi actually does come out and let's say, hey, in Q3, So in the quarter that we're currently in, we are going to be launching cryptocurrency, blah, 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 in various formats. I think that in among itself will cause SoFi to really go up at least 10% if they give a definitive date. So yes, I think a lot of the key metrics are important, but crypto, that's it. Massive source of revenue for Robinhood, and I think the same goes for SoFi. So let me know your thoughts on SoFi. Where do you see things going? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon. I give buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point and bangers. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.